You didn't pray once and give up. You prayed for years. Through the mornings when faith came easily and the nights when it cost you everything just to say the words. Through the seasons when it seemed like something was shifting and the longer seasons when nothing moved at all. You prayed with hope. You prayed through doubt. You prayed when you had nothing left but the muscle memory of showing up. And you lost anyway. Not because you stopped too soon. Not because your faith wasn't real enough. You went all the way to the end. And the end wasn't what you prayed for. And now you're sitting with something that doesn't have a clean name. Because the grief of losing something you loved is one thing. But the grief of losing it after years of faithful prayer is something different. Something heavier. Because the prayer was supposed to mean something. The faithfulness was supposed to count. And you're not sure it did. And that question, the one underneath the loss, is the one you can't stop returning to. Not just, why did I lose this? But, what does it mean that I prayed this hard and still lost it? You haven't said that out loud, but it's been there, waiting for someone to acknowledge it without flinching. Here's what makes it so much harder than a regular loss. The prayer made you more vulnerable, not less. Every time you brought it to God, every time you laid it down and trusted and believed and asked again, you were investing. Not just in the outcome, in the belief system underneath the outcome, in a framework that said, faithful prayer connects you to God's power, and God's power can change what looks unchangeable. You weren't just asking for a result. You were staking something deeper on the asking itself. And the longer you prayed, the more you staked, until the prayer and the belief and the thing you were praying for were all one thing, woven together in a way that made them impossible to separate. So when a loss came, it wasn't just the thing that was lost. It was the confidence that the prayer had been doing anything at all. It was the certainty that faithfulness connects to outcome. It was the story you've been telling yourself about how this works. And now you're left with a faith that survived the loss but doesn't know what to do with itself. That still believes in God, but has no framework for what just happened. That can't go back to praying the way you prayed before, because you don't know anymore what you're trusting when you pray. And people around you don't understand why the loss is hitting you this hard. They think it's grief, and it is, but it's also the collapse of a system you didn't know you were depending on. And rebuilding after that kind of loss is different from rebuilding after anything else. Here's something almost no one says clearly. Prayer was never designed to be a mechanism for controlling outcomes. And we all know that, but we don't live like we know it. Because somewhere in the practice of faithful prayer, a quiet assumption forms. That consistent, sincere, sustained prayer tilts the odds. That if you pray long enough and believe deeply enough, you're doing something that influences what happens. Not controlling it exactly, but participating in it in a way that matters. And that assumption isn't entirely wrong. Prayer is participation. It does matter. Scripture is clear about that. But the participation is not a transaction. And the matching is not always visible in the outcome. Because God is doing something in prayer that is larger than what we're asking for. He's not primarily in the business of adjusting circumstances. He's in the business of forming people. And the person who prays faithfully for years, through hope and doubt and exhaustion and loss, is being formed in ways that the answered prayer never could have produced. Not instead of the outcome you wanted. That loss is real and the grief is real. But alongside it, running deeper than it, producing something the answered prayer would have let you avoid. A faith that doesn't depend on results. The rarest and most enduring kind there is. What if the prayer wasn't wasted? It was redirected, not away from you, into you. Because here's what years of faithful prayer does regardless of the outcome. It forms the person praying. It builds a capacity for sustained trust that nothing else creates. It presses into you a kind of perseverance, not the showy kind, the quiet daily kind, that becomes the foundation for everything that comes after. And the loss you're carrying right now, the grief of praying that long and losing anyway, is sitting on top of something that was built in you during those years. Something you can't fully see yet because the grief is in the way. But it's there. The endurance, the depth, the ability to keep going when keeping going makes no sense. You built that during the years of prayer. It belongs to you, and the loss can't take it back. because it was never about the outcome to begin with. It was about who you were becoming while you asked, and who you became through those years of faithful, sustained, costly prayer. That person is still here, even after the loss, especially after the loss, because the loss is what revealed what was built, and what was built is more than you currently know. Think about someone training for something that never happens. An athlete who prepares for years for a competition that gets canceled. Every early morning, every session that pushed past what felt possible. Every sacrifice made in service of a goal. And then the goal disappears. Not because the training was wrong. Not because the athlete failed. Because the outcome was outside their control. And from the outside, it's easy to say, all that preparation was wasted. But the athlete knows something different. The training changed the body. Permanently. The capacity, the endurance, the strength. It doesn't disappear because the competition didn't happen. It stays. It carries over into everything that comes after. The years you spend in prayer change you the way training changes an athlete. Permanently. The capacity for trust you built doesn't disappear because the outcome didn't arrive. The endurance you developed through showing up when nothing was shifting, that's in you now. And whatever comes next will be carried by someone who prayed for years and kept going. Someone who knows how to sustain faith through silence. Someone who didn't quit when quitting was completely understandable. That's who you are now. The loss didn't make you that. The prayer did. Hannah prayed for a child for years. Scripture doesn't give us the exact number, but it was long enough that the grief had become a defining feature of her life. Long enough that her husband didn't know how to comfort her anymore. Long enough that a priest mistook her desperate prayer for drunkenness. And she prayed anyway, year after year, pilgrimage after pilgrimage, the same altar, the same request, the same tears. And the text says something important about what happened in her prayer. It says she poured out her soul to God, not a polished request, not a confident declaration of faith, a pouring out, everything she had, all of it, onto the altar. And then she went home, and she ate, and her face was no longer sad. Not because the prayer had been answered yet. It hadn't. But because something had changed in the praying itself. The act of pouring everything out, of releasing the weight completely into God's hands, produced something in Hannah before the outcome arrived. And the outcome did arrive. And what Hannah poured out in those years of faithful prayer became the foundation of a life that changed the entire trajectory of Israel. Her son was Samuel. The years of unanswered prayer were not wasted years. They were the forming of a woman whose faith was deep enough to give back the very thing she'd prayed for. That doesn't happen without the years. So here's what I want you to hear clearly. The prayer was not wasted. Not a single year of it. Not a single morning you showed up when you didn't want to. Not a single night you prayed through tears with nothing to show for it. Not one word of it dissolved into nothing. It went somewhere. Into you. Into the formation of someone who knows how to trust at a depth that easy faith never reaches. Into the building of a capacity for sustained belief that the answered prayer would never have required. Into the making of a person who prayed for years and lost and is still here. Still standing. Still breathing. Still, if you're honest, still believing, even if the belief looks different now than it did before the loss. That person is not someone whose prayer failed. That person is someone whose prayer worked in a direction they couldn't see. And the grief is real. Don't let anyone rush you out of it. The loss is real. The confusion about how prayer works is real. But underneath the grief and the confusion, there's a person who is being formed through every year of asking. And that person is more than the outcome that didn't come. You are more than what you lost. You are what the years of prayer made you. And that is not nothing. That is the thing the loss cannot touch. Before you go, type these words in the comments. My prayer was not wasted. Not as a declaration you fully feel yet, but as a choice to believe that the years meant something. That the faithfulness counted. That who you became in the asking is still here. Even after the loss. Especially after it.